Welcome back, everybody. I'm Kaylee Fretz. It's 2023, and we're the Placeholder Podcast. We're still floating in a sea of uncertainty. Floating in this sea with me, Dave Rum, how are you?
Buoyant, thank you.
Oh, good. Yeah, glad to hear that. Better than sinking.
Yes.
Dan Cash,
Yes.
how about yourself?
Yeah, I don't know. I was really impressed with the rapidity of Dave's answer there. The buoyancy reference right away after talking about floating. Yeah, so I'm also feeling buoyant. I'm very happy to be floating into this new year. It's started off very well. I mean, we're only 48 hours in, but yeah, it's good so far.
Well, we have a fair amount to talk about today. Sorry we didn't do an episode over the holidays. Frankly, we wanted a bit of a holiday, and Dane, you were working anyway. You were busy. You were busy bee over there.
Very, very little bit. Yeah, I just one day there. I did a little cycling news action, but yeah, not too much work. Most of the time, I was enjoying some family time, which is what I think you're supposed to do during the break.
You got to put your fingers in all the pies, Dane.
That's also true. You gotta write some stories on, or actually just edit and sub stories, and maybe write one story on New Year's Eve. Yeah.
What story did you write?
Well, I wrote about Lizzie Deignan being. And by the way, what I'm about to say, I actually sort of had to workshop this because I wasn't really sure how the. Dave probably knows more about this than I do, or at least I hope he does. As a loyal subject, I actually don't know if he's loyal or not, of the British Empire. Lizzie Deignan was awarded an Order of the British Empire. She's now a member of the Order of the British Empire. And so I had to sort of figure out how all that worked, and then write a little thing about it. So good for her. Good for Lizzie Deignan, joining the illustrious ranks of, well, Brad Wiggins, Cavendish. Brad Wiggins has since been knighted, but originally was, you kind of go up the ranks sometimes. Sometimes you just start as an OBE or MBE is even lower than that. Yeah, I had to learn all this stuff on New Year's Eve, and now I know it, and it's very exciting.
I have no idea what you're talking about. So what level is Lizzie?
It's a chivalric order, Kaylee, because chivalry is very important to the British Empire. And Lizzie Deignan is she's an MBE. Geraint Thomas is an OBE. He's an officer. And then Brad Wiggins, and then Laura and Jason Kenny. They are knights / dames.
And Chris Hoy as well, I think.
Extra spiffy special. Yeah. So there you go. Maybe Dave, you'll be united someday.
Unlikely.
For services
especially
to
given
tools.
I keep mentioning that Australia should leave the monarchy. But anyway, that's for a different episode, different podcast.
Well, we do have a fair amount to talk about today, as is becoming not only a tradition but also a running joke. We must update you on Mark Cavendish and what he is up to. We do have some info there. We're going to talk about cyclocross. This is going to be a very strange episode. We're going to talk about cross, which a lot of you out there will know is not necessarily
is cyclocross. I'll be ready by the time we're talking.
Just go ask ChatGPT. We'll be fine. We'll figure out what cross is between now and that segment. We have an EPO positive and tramadol. Actually, we got all kinds of stuff from Spain. Talk about that. I am going to quiz Dane and Dave on the triplets of Belleville. We're going to talk about Bianchi. We're going to talk about Jack Thompson, who just completed an absolutely insane physical feat, all for a very good cause. And then we're going to get into what we are looking forward to most in 2023. Maybe some predictions about what's going to happen in various areas. Now, the first thing we do want to talk about today is straight out of the United States of America, which happens to be where Dane and I are. A project that has been kind of in the works for quite some time. I've been hearing about this for, like 2+ years now. This concept has been floated around. Originally, actually, it was Justin Williams that told me about this kind of idea. I don't know if it originated with him. I'm not going to fall on either side of this particular little debate here. But Justin and Legion are no longer involved in the NCL, the National Cycling League, which is actually, there was an NCL before. I think it was in the 80s or 90s. Didn't end up working out, but they're trying again. I shouldn't say they're trying again. Somebody is trying a similar thing with the same name. Dane, what is the NCL?
They're essentially people who may or may not be, kind of closely linked to the cycling world. I know a number of them are actually not at all. They're athletes in other sports, particularly there's a number of NFL, American football players, and a couple of other investors who want to launch this, or who are launching this league for bike races in America, and teams that will be based specifically in much the same way as American pro sports like baseball or football in specific cities. And over the past few weeks, they've kind of rolled out some of the names and some of the rosters. For instance, the Denver Disruptors and the Miami Knights. That's Knight starting with an N, not a K. So the mascot is like, it's like the you have at night, I guess, as opposed to like a guy in armor on a horse. And a number of actually pretty notable people on the Denver Disruptors, Miami Knights, and I would assume the other teams that are going to be announced here. They actually have quite a few pretty big names, which did that. But when this news kind of first came out, when I guess they first did their little PR blitz a few months ago, it was very clear that it was a bunch of people who are not particularly closely linked with the cycling community, and not a whole lot of names that we've heard many things about in cycling, just things from other sports. But now I think it's become a lot clearer that they actually have some, pretty thorough cycling knowledge, and they've gotten interest from some pretty notable people in the cycling scene.
What sort of racing is it?
It's basically crit racing, and so it's supposed to be like kind of an American take, in many different ways, on bike racing. And by American take, I mean like crits, which are a very American thing, and also the sort of franchise model and league model that we tend to use over here.
So you mentioned Justin Williams before. This all sounds a lot like what I've heard Justin Williams and the Legion team talking about for a few years. So why aren't they involved?
I'm going to leave the answer to that to another episode.
Okay.
So there's a fair amount of backstory here, and some of the folks who are involved in the new NCL were formerly working with Legion. There's some... Anyway, I think it's best that if I sort of put my ducks in a row before I answer that question, because I do think it's quite interesting. It's interesting who's involved now. It's interesting who is sort of working on a similar concept previously. I don't want to say they're the same thing, because there is no direct sort of through line, right?
Sure.
But there was a concept that was being worked on, and there is now a concept being launched. That yes, we will return to on this podcast at some point when again I have more ducks in a row from a reporting perspective. For now, though, it's just an interesting thing for me. One, it's got a enormous prize purse. It's got $1 million purse. They've raised something like $7.5 million to put this thing together. They've got some interesting names floating around in these teams. Swain Tuft is back. He's gonna be the coach, I think, of the Denver Disruptors. So that's fun. And yeah, it's supposed to be this sort of like fast format, closed format, crit racing thing. A lot of their sort of marketing materials talk a lot about diversity and equality. Lots of like the men's and women's teams race equally and are essentially worth equal from like a points perspective and all the rest, and a payout perspective. So in a lot of ways, it's quite sort of forward thinking and just sort of breaks down the door of the way that a lot of road racing has always existed. I mean, even like the American crit scene right now, for some reason, professional women's races are still an hour and professional men's races are 90 minutes, right? Like some stuff that just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense today, that they're going to be eliminating that sort of thing. And yeah, the folks behind it are pretty fascinating, including like one of the top agents from the NFL, some like actual NFL players and former players bringing money to the table. And again, just the sheer amount of cash behind it, I think makes it a pretty interesting thing. I'm not going to put a stake in the sand as to whether it's going to work or not. I have no idea, but it certainly has a lot better chance of working than some of the other things that have launched in the last 10 years or so that showed up with like a brand and a website and no money, right? I would rather see them show up with $7.5 million and figure some of the details out later, to be honest.
Where do we know where the said money is coming from? You mentioned some NFL players, but surely they can't all be just backing it? Are there familiar sponsors behind this, or what's?
At the moment, I believe all the investment is coming from individuals that would not be.
Wow.
It's not, there's no Trek behind it. There's no Specialized behind it. There's no SRAM behind it. When you look at the list of folks involved in this, $7.5 million doesn't look like a lot. That's the level of sort of wealth that we are talking about here. So anyway, fascinating project. And they released those rosters just before Christmas. Dane, what were the names that kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, the Denver Disruptors in particular. Leah Kirchman is a name from the World Tour. Sergio Enal being the other really big one from the kind of former World Tour scene. Reinhard Jens van Rensburg, another big one. Sergei Tvetkov has been kind of around the American racing scene for a long time and just he very frequently was in the top tens of races like the Tour California, Colorado Classic, that sort of thing. And a handful of other names that you would have certainly been familiar with if you've watched maybe international, but particularly kind of North American racing over the past few years.
I mentioned this. I wrote a thing on, you guys know post period. I don't know. It's supposed to be like a Twitter replacement, and I just jumped on it because I had nothing better to do one morning because I'm unemployed. And I wrote a little thing on there that kind of compared this to like the early days of the MLS, like Major League Soccer here in the United States, where, and actually even to this day a little bit, where they can't really get, they're not going to get the top names, right? But they become this sort of place where relatively big name athletes end up as like a soft landing kind of post-retirement. Like I'm joking here, but I'm halfway expecting one of these teams to announce that Mark Cavendish is racing for them.
This is exactly where my mind went to, because I'm thinking of David Beckham going to the US Football League.
Exactly.
And Cav is kind of the closest comparison that cycling has right now.
I mean, it would be hilarious, right? It would be unfortunate because he's not going to win any tour stages racing for the NCL, but it's there's a lot of similarities there, right? Because you've got this sort of burgeoning league, not even burgeoning, it's just getting off the ground. It needs some cachet. It needs some names that people have ever heard of before, because a bunch of like American crit racers, no offense to American crit racers, most folks out there are not going to be super familiar with those names. You need some European road racing talent. Who are you going to find? You're going to find the folks that essentially just retired. Like Leah Kirchman she just announced her retirement and is basically like, I'm gonna half retire and I'm gonna race for this thing, and I can continue to race, whatever it is, hour long, half hour long, I don't know the exact format, events. And I wonder if we're gonna see it, if it does take off and there's cash, that's the other big thing. I wonder if we're gonna see more riders take that soft landing for retirement, right? Because the cash could be potentially quite good, and that's part of the reason why some of these big names have always ended up at things like the MLS, where you've got Gareth Bale, who was one of the best soccer/football players on the planet. He's now playing soccer for the LA Galaxy. Like, it's a common thing, and I would be surprised if we see it a bit more in the bike racing world. Question is, would Mark Cavendish race for the Miami Knights or the Denver Disruptors?
Will they be in the Tour de France?
No. Neither of them are in the Tour de France.
Obvious. Yeah.
I feel like he strikes me more as a Miami Knights kind of guy, if I had to choose between just those two options,
Yeah.
Well, that's the only teams we've got announced so far. Yeah. So anyway, let's leave the NCL behind. The reason I feel comfortable leaving it behind is because I know that we're going to be talking about this again, because there's going to be more announcements coming up, and the answer to some of the bigger questions that you were asking, Dave, we will try to bring you here on this podcast. Because frankly, like, it's one of those weird areas where there's not a whole lot of reporting going on in this space at the moment, and so there's not really a good way to find out.
Why do you think that is, Kaylee?
It could be because there's no bike media in America anymore. So we'll do our best to make some phone calls and get some answers for you on that front. Well, we already mentioned Cav here, so we should just do the Cav update. This is going to be a weekly segment of the show for all of 2023. We're going to tell you where he's riding. So where's Cav riding, Dane? Is it still Astana?
We think Astana? So. As we discussed last episode, we were We were told by all the reports that he was going to Astana, and apparently so was Case Bowl to be, in lead out form. So, by the way, that would give them a pretty decent lead out, not nothing. And Cavendish apparently also went to Astana, Kazakhstan's training camp. So that would be a further piece of evidence that he was hanging out with Astana, riding a Willier in December, according to Cycling News. And then the team released their photo the other day of the team. And of course, everybody immediately goes to look at the photo to see if Cav's there, and he's not. So that's a little bit confusing. Raises some questions. Why isn't Cav in the photo? Is he actually going to Astana, Kazakhstan? Of course, they haven't announced it yet, so anything can happen at this point. But I don't think it's too indicative that there's any kind of trouble behind the scenes just yet.
But any contracts were up at the end of the year. So just to remind everybody, like that's the new year is the turnover for contracts, and so his former contract is done. Is over. He either has a team right now or he doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's now January 2nd. That's the day that we're recording this in the evening. And we don't have Dave Rome. It's January 3rd there. Have you heard anything?
No, nothing has come through here. So yeah, I mean, you'll be able to go to sleep and not have to worry about the future for the next 12 hours or so.
That's great news.
Yeah.
What's happening? What's going on? Why isn't he just telling us?
I don't have answers for that. Yeah, for sure. That's an unanswered question.
I mean, is our little guesstimate that he's just messing with us? Is he messing?
I have
with us?
an alternative suggestion, which is he knows that because it is January, and he knows that because the only other things we have to talk about right now are like doping and cross. He's throwing us a bone so that we have things to talk about. My suspicion is he was listening to podcasts over the past few weeks and thought, I'm going to keep giving them something to talk about, or else, as a listener, I will be bored. So, in that vein, thank you, Mark Cavendish, for what you're doing, for continuing to give us something to talk about. I appreciate that.
Maybe he was actually trying to do the opposite. Maybe he was trying to give us a few weeks off, knowing that there'd be nothing to talk about, and instead, the silence has given us something to speak of. It's just completely backfired.
As the Cycling News,
really confused by
the Cycling News article from Laura Wieslow points out, he was riding with Astana at their training camp on a Willier. There's a lot of evidence that points to him being on this team and maybe just missing the photo. I mean, I want it would be great if there was more juice here. I don't know. I don't know that there's anything more to this. But yeah, it'd be great. We could talk about it for a whole nother episode if there is.
We're going to talk about it every week anyway. We're just going to remind people where he's riding.
So we're placeholding for just the Cavendish podcast. That's going to be the eventual name that we unveil here.
There used to be a series on a former employer website called Where Are They Now? And I think we could just do that every week for Cav.
Ooh, I like that.
Where are they?
Where is he right now?
We need to get like a Find My Friends on his iPhone.
That's not creepy at
Yeah.
all.
Provide more
I could
detailed
foresee
information.
Just text him.
I could foresee us getting quite creepy with this week in, week out.
Hey, Mark, I interviewed you once at the Tour of Oman 4 years ago. You probably don't remember me, but I'd love to know your whereabouts every week for this podcast we do.
I think it'd work.
Maybe.
Just text him. Yeah. All right. Well, there's your Cav update. We still have no idea. I will remind everybody that we did hear... We heard he was retiring. We heard that's what B&B Hotels management was telling B&B Hotels riders before that team completely imploded and actually as it imploded. Now that could still be an eventuality here. It could be one of the options that happens. I kind of doubt it. I still think he's probably going to Astana, isn't he? Well, we'll leave it there. That's enough Cav update for all of you. We're going to step into a realm of true expertise here. Dane looks terrified. We're going to talk about cyclocross. Now, we have panned cyclocross previously on this podcast and others. That's not because we don't like cyclocross. It's because my brain is too small, and I cannot fit another discipline of this lovely sport of ours into it, and that is the one that I unfortunately have decided to leave behind. However, even the non-cross fan, like myself, could not help but enjoy the cursed period, which is the Christmas period, basically. A series of cross races in Belgium, kind of the biggest week for cross, I would say, in Belgium. And we were treated to two things. We were treated, one, to extremely open and I guess sort of unpredictable racing on the women's side, and we were treated to an epic battle between three of the biggest names in the sport on the men's side. Now, Dane, normally this is where I would turn to you and say, Dane, tell me what happened. But I happen to know for a fact that, one, there's too many races to talk about, and we don't want to talk about all of them in depth. Two, I don't think you really care what happened.
It's not that I don't care.
Three,
I don't care enough. It's not that I cared so little that I don't care at all. It's I don't care enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the big thing is it doesn't actually matter. We're not here to dissect the racing tactics of cyclocross because, frankly, we are ill-equipped to do so. And there are other great podcasts out there that talk about cross all the time. And if you love cross, you should definitely listen to the other fantastic podcasts out there. We are here to talk about how great that rivalry is, because I am struggling to think of a more direct rivalry, a more thrilling rivalry than what we saw from Wout van Aert, Mathieu van der Poel, and Tom Pidcock. I think that the best part for me was that we've had this sort of back and forth between van der Poel and Wout van Aert for a very long time, and all of a sudden we've got a third that just showed up, and that was pretty awesome.
I didn't watch all the racing, but I definitely watched Zolder, and the thing that stood out to me is just how incredibly pinned these front runners are. I watch the one discipline that I always tune into is cross country mountain bike World Cup, and I mean Pidcock and Van der Poel do appear in those races, but they never look as out of control as they have in these races. And seeing Van der Poel, throwing one leg off the side of the bike, just trying to keep it upright around corners, or literally pinballing himself off of an inflatable barrier. Seeing Pidcock staying on the bike while literally everyone else is running. It's so cool to see these guys pushing the limits technically when they've already got the biggest engines.
Yeah, and there's it's so tight between the three of them, right? That you're watching, and the commentators have said this a number of times. In fact, Jose was commentating on I think it was Zolder that I was watching. That one mistake is all it takes, right? And if you think about, if anybody out there has ever raced any cross, I've raced actually a fair amount of cross. I make one or two mistakes, I don't know, every corner, and I can't actually comprehend of a mistake-free cyclocross race in 6 inches of mud in freezing cold temperatures with your hands cold and all the rest. It was a stunning display throughout the entire week, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So for all of you out there who have always yelled at me for hating cyclocross, not true. I like good cyclocross. What I don't like is watching, I don't know, Mathieu van der Poel go win by 4 minutes or something like that, which sometimes happen when the other two don't show up. But it was just great racing. I agree, Dave. It was amazing to watch them just completely pinned and so level with each other. That's what made it so cool. So we have that in the men's side, right? We have essentially three riders who we basically know one of them is going to win every single race. The women's races were quite different from that. Quite a bit more open, quite a bit, I guess in some ways you could say more interesting as a result. But Dane, run me through it.
Well, I think it's just another good rivalry with just maybe a handful of more players. Because on the women's side, you have maybe 4 big players right now. Probably more than that. I'm probably being unfair to 1 or 2 people, but it's not close. Just put it that way. It's an open race. You've got Puck Pidders winning. You've got Shireen Van Androoy, Fem Van Empel, and Lucinda Brand, obviously the defending world champion. And I think all of those riders, and plus a handful of others, are in contention all the time. And that's a pretty exciting thing for cross. Cross often goes through these periods where you just have a single rider dominating for years, and that has not been the case this season, and I think that's pretty exciting for both sides because the men, it's not just one or even two now. We've got Pidcock in the mix, and then the women's side, you've got, like I said, 4, maybe even 5, 6 riders who are winning those races, and so between Pieters, Van Anrooy, Van Empel, and Brand, I think it's a pretty healthy state of affairs. Of course, those are all Dutch riders. The parity does not extend beyond the borders of the Netherlands. That's where all of the good female cyclocross racers are. But it's a lot more than just one person, which is pretty cool.
Didn't I see Alvarado did something last week? I mean, former world champ, got kind of quiet.
Yeah, she won also a Dutch rider, won a super prestige race, and the other thing is that she's generally close, there or thereabouts, as British commentators love to say. So it's not as if she just kind of completely, fell off the map. She's definitely kind of still in the mix. So I should include her as well in my listing of Dutch dominant cyclocross women.
There's your annual placeholder cyclocross coverage. I hope you enjoyed it.
I have to say that last few minutes is an example of why we don't do cyclocross.
It is.
No. No, the last few minutes is going to be perfect when when it gets edited, so that the listeners. When edited, it's going to be great. And the listeners are going to have no idea.
When it gets edited, it'll go from a 2 out of 10 to like a 4 out of 10. That's about as high as we're going to get.
Still a hot, rambling mess.
That's twice as good.
I mean, genuinely, people do. They ask all the time why we don't want to talk about cross. It's because we're not the people to talk about cross. We could talk about mountain bikes. We could talk about road racing. We can talk about all sorts of stuff, tech, all sorts of stuff. You just don't want us talking about cross. We're just going to come across as idiots. It's really all, and we do that enough on our own.
I can talk a bit to cross tech, but I won't.
Are we going back to Canties? Is that what we're doing?
That is not happening.
Avid Shorty Ultimate, perhaps.
That is not happening. Did you see the mud at the races?
Someone should just rock up to one of these big major Belgian races with Canties again. It would make me happy. Does anyone even make it? No one even makes a Canty cross bike anymore.
No, I think you could probably still can get them. Like Richie definitely still makes one. I'm sure there's some. I feel like some Euro brands would probably still offer them as like a reproduced bike from 5 years ago.
Well, anyway,
you can still buy good Canty brakes. That's the key thing. So you can still buy the wheels. So there's no real reason
there has
never do it.
There has never been such thing as a good Canty brake.
Sorry, I mean good as in they feel nice when you pull the lever. They look nice. They're light, and they don't stop like every other Canty brake. That's what I mean when I say a good Canty brake. It's like they're a quality brake as long as you don't want braking power.
Yeah. I remember cyclocross people trying to explain to me how brakes that didn't work was faster. And it's like, no, there's not a wheeled sport.
Wait, that makes sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense. There's not a wheeled sport on the planet where brakes that don't work is faster. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, like if you're trying to break a land speed record, right? And you're in like the salt flats. Who needs brakes?
So if they have a cyclocross race that's just a straight line for an hour.
Yeah, like somewhere in Utah.
That's the only time.
That's it.
That's the only time.
There's your race.
Yeah. Anyway, that is the it's the full. It's not. We're not going to sit here and pretend that we're suddenly cyclocross experts. I just thought it was fantastic racing and worth mentioning. And anybody who, if you're like me and you just like good bike racing, go find it. If you didn't watch it, they're all, like I said, they're all available somewhere. And if you probably have no idea who won because we haven't really mentioned it, so it'll be a surprise. So it'll be like you're watching it live. Yeah. Well, so we have two little doping updates. One is cross related, so nice little segue, and one is not. One is amateur Spanish rider related. The cross one, Toon Aerts, we finally have a sentence. What's going on with Toon?
He has said that he is going to be facing a 2-year ban. So he tested positive all the way back in January of, I guess, last year now, which is weird to say. I think it's the first time I've said last year in reference to 2022. So back in January, he tested positive, and then he has not raced in quite a while. I think he's been like self-suspending, actually, and he has said that it was the result of a contaminated supplement and is trying to prove that and is facing a 2-year ban, which is less than the, I think, possible 4-year ban. So they're that's a sign that I think there is some indication that his explanation may have been, partially accepted. Although obviously, if he could actually prove 100%, it would be less than 2 years. So I think at the moment he and his legal team are trying to do what they can to get that reduced even further from the 2 years he's apparently facing. But that's all we know for now, is that he's looking at a 2-year ban.
And who's our Spanish EPO and tramadol positive?
Oh yeah, Inigo Gonzalez apparently tested positive for some old school. Well, I guess tramadol is not as old school as EPO, and it's not really doping, right? I mean, like it's not allowed, but you don't get tarred with a doping bust. It's sort of like you can't do that, but it's also not whatever. He did EPO and tramadol apparently, and he's the Spanish amateur national champion, and you can't do those things.
I just love EPO positives these days. I mean, way to stick with it. Really.
He's also only 23 years old, that's actually kind of sad. Like
that's pretty sad.
Yeah.
I much prefer like the 48-year-old master.
I mean, I don't condone masters doping, but like, I don't know. I just think of that when I think of EPO, not 23.
Yeah. But also, by 23, if you've come through the junior ranks, you really should have your microdosing down by then. So, all right, I'm gonna stop talking now.
All right, we'll leave the dopers behind. Thankfully, not a whole lot of doping update this week. Have you guys seen the Triplets of Belleville?
Is that a TV show?
No, it's a movie.
I had to look it up when you put it in the run sheet. I didn't know what it was.
2001, I think it was. I can't remember. Must have been. I went and saw it with a high school girlfriend, so it must have been around then. No, neither of you.
Negative.
Okay, well, that's everybody's homework between now and next week. So the reason I mentioned this is Dave Toll, voice of American cycling, basically, announcer. He tweeted today that it was on YouTube. Like somebody stole it and put it on YouTube. Now I do not condone watching stolen movies on YouTube. But if you don't have, I think it's also on Hulu. If you've got Hulu, but you've had to pay for that, obviously. So if you don't have Hulu, it's on YouTube. It's got some weird bits, and it's maybe not for very young children. And it's 20 years old, so like everything 20 years old, it's got some weird bits in it. But it's a classic cycling movie, and I feel like it doesn't get talked about enough these days.
I'm looking it up, and I think I have seen it, but I didn't watch the whole thing.
What?
I need to give it another go.
You need to give it another go. Give it another shot. It's good. Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes says it's worth my time.
Yeah. Guy with big calves rides around, does some stuff, eats some frogs. It's great. Anyway, to all of our listeners out there, if you have not seen Triplets of Belleville, you know how to spell triplets. Belleville is Belleville, I believe. Anyway, if you start typing it in, it'll autofill. Go watch it. It's like one of those, it's like never having seen American Flyers or Breaking Away or something like that. It's
Home Alone.
Or Home Alone. It's one of a very small number of cycling related movies, and really that the cyclist is the star of this one. That you just need to go watch. And I was just reminded of this by Dave Toll. So thanks, Dave, for tweeting that out. Spotted it earlier today. All right, last little news item here before we get into our predictions for next year. Jack Thompson just did something pretty incredible. Dave, what was it?
Yeah, Perth-based Aussie, Girona-based normally. Perth native, but Girona-based. He rode 1 million vertical meters in a year. And he announced this. It was a thing he did throughout 2022. And when he first announced it over a year ago, kind of did the rough numbers in my mind, and I was like, there is no way he is going to achieve that. He's going to get 4 or 5 months in. He's going to get an overuse injury or sick or something, and he's just not going to get anywhere near that because that is just an absurd amount of riding every week. But he's done it and proved me wrong. Good thing I didn't mention my my opinion on that before. But he's done it, and he's been doing it, trying to raise money for mental health. So his fundraising is still open. And yeah, I think if for anyone that puts a million divided by 52 into their calculator, we'll see just how much elevation that is every week, and it's ridiculous.
It is
So
19,000 meters of climbing every week.
every week.
It's 2 and a bit. It's like almost 2.5 Everests.
Yeah.
Every week. It's like a third of an Everest every day.
Yeah. So I think he did 52 Everest, so like an Everest a week. I don't think he did literally an Everest every week. I think there was some weeks where he did 2, but either way, like whatever way you divide it, it's still amazing. Like it's amazing, and also something that I hope doesn't become a thing where people try to double that.
That's so much time on a bicycle. What would you do? What would you think about for that much time on a bicycle? That's just insane. Where can people donate?
Yeah, I found a link through his Instagram. So Jack at Jack Ultracyclist is how I come across him. But he's got a YouTube page as well, and he's got a website. Yeah, Jack Thompson or Jack Ultracyclist, and through there you'd be able to find what he's trying to raise.
That's almost 3.3 million feet for those of us who operate on Freedom units. It's just, I can't even wrap my head around that. It's like 9,000 feet a day. What?
It's a lot.
What? Kudos to him. That's amazing. Well, that's it for our sort of like news roundup today. We wanted to get into just some predictions, I guess is this the way to think about it.
Hopes for? Maybe just hopes.
Hopes. So, Dane, I'm gonna start with you. Hopes and dreams, predictions, whatever, for 2023. We're at 2 days in. How are you feeling so far? What are you looking forward to?
I'm feeling really good. I've got an honorable mention for what I'm really looking forward to that I'll start with, and that is that Bianchi's back on the World Tour, and I'm very excited about that. With Arkea Samsic, and as you can see, I mean the listeners can't see, but you guys can. You can see the Celeste.
I can.
And
Celeste.
in the back here,
can't.
you can't see it.
I can see the handlebar attached to something, which I now know is Celeste.
Yeah,
but
well, it's actually mostly black.
There we go.
There's some
right.
Celeste right around the stem there. Yeah. So I have a Bianchi, and while Bianchi's been out of the World Tour, I've felt lost. Like riding around the streets of Boulder, I feel like, what am I even riding on? Because before I felt like I was riding on a storied bike brand with many years of history, and then there was this period where I wasn't, and that was a real bummer. And now I'm back. I'm back, baby, because Arkea Samsic is teaming up with Bianchi this year, and that's really great news.
I saw Cofidis is back on Look.
Yep, and they got a new blade, which has been teased on Instagram as of today. It shows off what looks like a new crank on it as well from Look. Very SRM-ish looking Look crank. But a slightly new shape that we haven't seen before, and running Corima wheels, and also of note they've gone with Shimano group shifting, so no longer Campagnolo, which may be a result of like them using that Look crank and Corima wheels. So maybe Campagnolo tends to want to have full sponsorship, so whole group sets and whole and wheels with its team. So perhaps that's why. But a very French-looking bike.
So UAE also dropped Campagnolo. Did they have anybody? Did they have Lotto?
Well, that's a very interesting question.
And what the heck is Lotto called now? Lotto Destiny. That's what they are. With Soudal gone.
Lotto's not World Tour anymore.
Also, they're not really Destiny. They're like Lotto. There's no vowels there. So I refuse to say that with vowels if they're not going to put vowels in their name.
I think AG2R is... So they went with Lotto the previous year. That had ceased in 2022. I think AG2R might be their... they were sponsoring... Campagnolo was sponsoring them in 2022. So I can only assume that might be the last remaining team for them moving forward.
It's a bit sad. I hope they can return. Yeah. We had heard we'd heard about Campagnolo getting dropped out of UAE, actually back at the Tour de France last year. We heard rumors that there were literally like Pogacar had a bike with Shimano on it that was like ready to go, which you never saw with our own eyes. We don't know if that was actually true, but that's what was floating around. So anyway, it's kind of sad to have Camp Ag slowly dwindling, I guess.
It is, but it's also, I guess, the business, the corporate side of this is that the bigger brands, the mass production brands, tend to go with the group sets that are featured on the bikes they sell. And Campagnolo for decades now hasn't had a lot of original equipment presence. Like, you don't really walk into the bike shop and find too many bikes with Campagnolo shifting. And that plays a large role in why so many teams just default to, say, Shimano, for example, because if they don't have an official group set sponsor, then typically it's the bike brand, the sponsoring bike brand that supplies the group sets.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Dave, what are you looking forward to in 2023? What's your prediction?
I predict that I won't be riding 1,000,000 meters of elevation, but
We're 2 days behind already, so
damn it.
screwed.
I've done like 500 meters. That's
Huh.
a good start. Yeah.
Oh.
It's actually more than that, thankfully.
Oh, I forgot. It's summer.
What am I predicting?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's very much summer here. What am I predicting? I foresee new things from SRAM, given the timing of things and the general product cycle that we expect from these companies. Yeah, there's rumors out there of new things pending. There's rumors of an Apex, a very entry-level version of Axis. So I foresee
electronic
that.
Apex.
Electronic Apex, yeah, which I don't know what they'll do to make it substantially cheaper than Rival.
So attach lead weights to it or something like that.
Yeah, because you could assume that they're going to keep the same batteries and the same little stepper motors and the same general features. So they just have to make it cheaper and heavier. So yeah, I foresee that. I foresee.
Haven't we seen some new like SRAM hoods on some of the
We
bikes that have popped up over the last week?
Yeah. I don't know. There's some that say that's a brand new thing. Others say it's an old thing with typical SRAM. Because SRAM's teams get different lever blades. They get lever blades without all the model name markings on it, and it just says SRAM because when the camera's pointing at a rider head on, then you have bigger brand presence. So there's two ways of looking at that. It's either a new lever or it's just purely a team issue lever for branding opportunity. I have no opinion on that because I haven't looked into it well enough because I'm unemployed. And yeah, I guess in terms of other things to predict, I think gravel bikes, we'll see more things with suspension.
Ooh, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I'm not stoked about it, but
Yeah.
but yeah, the more suspension gravel bikes get, the sooner people will find how great cross country mountain biking is.
And that's what we're really hoping for, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my prediction for 2023 is that the three of us here build a enormous media empire.
Wow.
Dave Runs Frozen.
Bold.
Yeah, right? But accurate, I think. Inevitable, even, I would say. And what I would ask all of our listeners out there to do is, just keep that in mind. Keep in mind that a media empire is bubbling beneath the surface and will erupt like a giant volcano at some point in a couple months, probably.
Hopefully not killing people in its wake.
Hey, you know what? Got to take with the bad with the good sometimes. Whatever happens, happens. We hope for that, indeed. But if our media empire has to squash some people along the way, that's that's what happens sometimes, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's my prediction for 2023. The Placeholder Media Empire. Hopefully, we come up with a better name by then. But frankly, no guarantee. It
The
will
Mark Cavendish
be,
podcast.
the Mark Cavendish podcast will be erupting at some point, and frankly, you know, all of you out there should be ready. All right, that's it from us today. Keep this episode on the short side. We're gonna have some more guests back next week. We'll probably have some names you will recognize next week, I think. So make sure you tune in. Make sure you share this. As a reminder, the three of us here, we've all lost our jobs. We've all lost essentially the kind of built-in audience that we had, and so we're rebuilding from scratch. And so every single share is, well, it's welcome and helpful and frankly vital for the three of us continuing to do this at this point. So thank you to all of you who have reviewed us and given us 5 stars on iTunes and all the rest. Share away. That would be amazing. Particularly to folks that you know love podcasts or liked what we did before. That would be fantastic. Thank you very much. We'll be back next week. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dane.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
See you.
Ciao.